Good morning, everyone. We also have that little quiet pause to make sure we start on time and not too early. Welcome to the DMC, the February meeting. There's no practice alarm today, so if the alarm goes off, can you exit through these doors and out onto the car park? If you've got your phone, can you please check it's on silent or turned off? Thank you. The acoustics in this room are not great. You will notice there are no speakers around. The speakers are in these little machines by the microphone. So if you're struggling to hear, just pull that a little closer to you and you should be able to hear better. And a warm welcome to the public watching our webcast. This meeting will be on our YouTube site and archived in line with the South Norfolk archive policy. An agenda is published on our website with any updates to the agenda. And today we have 4 applications. And this is a meeting held in public and not a public meeting. So registered public speaking is in place, and it starts with the town or parish council, then objectors, then the applicant agent supporter, and finally followed by the local district councillor. And you'll be invited to come up to the public speaking desk. Each group can speak for up to 5 minutes in total, and if you wish, you may use more than one speaker. But if you do, you'll have to share the time and be very careful about sharing the time. And we'll tell you with 1 minute to go, and then at the 5 minutes, I'll ask you to come to your conclusion. I can confirm that all members have received in advance the agenda, presentation, update sheet and lobbying. And planning officers will present the key points of each application for the committee, and members will determine by a show of hands the applications before us today, and I'll give you the result. And please note that if you speak today on an application, your name will be recorded in the minutes and kept on public record indefinitely. So Leah, apologies please.
Yes, Chair. We've received apologies from absence from Councillor D. Thompson, with Councillor Lisa Neal substituting, Councillor Rosen and Councillor Kieran Murphy.
Thank you. I've got no urgent business. In declaration of interest, we've had lobbying on number 4. Are there any other declarations of interest? No. Minutes of the last meeting, members, are all content with the minutes? Take that as agreement, yes. So we're going to go to application number 1, which is land north of Hill Farm, Wacton Road, Fawncett St Peter. And it's Richard when you're ready.
Thank you, Chair. So here we have an application for the installation of a battery energy storage system, also known as BESS, including associated infrastructure and landscaping, and it's a site at land north of Hill Farm, Wacton Road, Fawncett St Peter. This is the red line site location plan to the east of Wacton. Green in the area of Bustard's Green, you can see the overhead electrical lines that cut north-south through the sites. This is the site positioned to the west of Long Stratton and the east of Fawncett St Peter and Fawncett St Mary, and it's set on arable fields. This is the site at closer view. There is a fair coverage of tree cover along some of the boundaries through adjacent and surrounding the site. Land to the south of the site has in the relatively recent past been used as an outdoors activity space for go-karts, 4x4 driving, archery and assault course. That has now been fully removed, and the general area is flat arable fields enclosed with sections of mature tree cover and hedgerows. This image taken from the arboricultural impact assessment shows the existing field boundaries relative to their setting and adjacent vegetation. This slide shows the public rights of way that route through the area, namely footpaths FP14 to the north side and FP15 to the south side, both which route east-west. This slide shows the site relative to designated heritage assets, namely the starred listed buildings and the indicated conservation areas at Long Stratton to the east, Whackton to the south and Fawnset St Peter to the west. This is the proposed layout of the battery storage. The BESS itself is based on a relatively compact footprint, just under 0.5 of a hectare. It will comprise of the following key elements: access via a loop road system designed with two approaches as per Norfolk Fire and Rescue Service guidance, and that's labelled 5 and 6. Batteries and inverters set centrally. Links to the grid transformer area labelled 7, and as also enclosed at either end by a client control building labelled 1 and a DNO control building, that's a district network operator control building labelled 8. There's also a spare parts container labelled 9 and a water tank shown labelled 3. Some of the individual buildings themselves. So this is the DNO control building, the district network operator control building, and that's to be built in brick with a slight pitched roof. This is the grid transformer substation, although a full section of this is shown, which has a height of 6.77 metres. Much of it will not be seen, i.e. that below the 4 metre high enclosed acoustic fencing. Inside the main site compound, as enclosed by the 4 metre high acoustic fencing, a further enclosure of the grid transformer substation will be contained by 2.4 metre high metal palisade fencing for added security. CCTV will be mounted at just over 4 metres high. This is the client control building. The exact details of the finishing external material are not yet specified, but will be controlled by condition in the submission of materials and colours. These are the typical battery units, just under 3 metres high, just over 6 metres long, almost 2.5 metres wide. They are set on concrete pads. They will be connected to the power conversion inverter units of similar dimensions to the main battery storage units. This is the spare parts container, 12.2 metres long by 2.5 metres wide, 2.8 metres high. All enclosed within the acoustic fencing, which is at 4 metres high. The colour and exact material detail to be still agreed under condition, but it would be typically expected to be a green or brown colour. This is the water tank. Again, the exact colour to be subject of conditions, but equally expected to be formed in a green or brown colour. This is the proposed landscape plan. Key features here include the substantive planting to the west side on the field edge, with an area of excavated soil taken to create the adjacent attenuation pond. This will be planted with trees to further screen the development on this west side of the actual site itself. And there'll be a woodland edge mix to be provided either side of the access road as well. Hedgerow gap infilling will take place to the southwest and the south sections of the site. Some photos now. So this photo shows the site access proposed within the existing gap in the hedgerow on Whackton Road. This will be widened slightly with an extra 4 metres removed to provide the full width required for the access of HGVs in construction. This is the view looking north. This here is a view to the east now in the same access point in the direction of the access road to be taken. This is a view a bit further to the south, and you've got footpath FP14 just in view there as well, looking north again. This is the view at the other end of the field, looking back to the west. Footpath FP14 routes through and just within the woodland tree edge. This slide shows the detailed design of the proposed access road through a gap between the tree cover and the hedgerow edge and underneath the route of the overhead pylon line. A 2 metre wide segregated footpath route shown in yellow will also be provided to give additional protection to pedestrians during the construction period. This photo shows where the access will route through the gap. This is the view looking towards the south. Just turning around a little bit now, the photo shows where the footpath crosses when exiting from the woodland edge at the same point. This view looking northwest. Further to the south, this shows where the access road will curve between the woodland edge and the pylon. There is considered to be good visibility generally along the route of the footpath FP14. This is the photo of the actual siting of where the BESS will be placed. The view is looking southeast. Hill Farm is set just further away to the background. This more expansive view is towards the east generally and shows the extent of the field. This photo is taken from the footpath FP14 towards the west. Within the background is Grove Mill, a former working mill, but now residential, considered to be a non-designated heritage asset. Adjacent is a further lower scale dwelling called Grove Stables, and beyond and around both are further dwellings, namely Grove Cottage, the Grove Bungalow and the Grove, which is a more substantive large period property. These dwellings are set generally around 325 to 375 metres away from the main BESS site footprint. The relationship of the proposal with Grove Mill has been appraised within the heritage statement as having a low level impact from the development in its setting. The public benefits of the proposal in providing a battery storage facility to help stabilise and store electricity outweighing the low level harm identified. Additionally, tree planting as shown in the landscape plan will feature on this western boundary to help further screen more direct views of the proposal. The attenuation pond will further sit in front of this. So moving a bit further now to the southwest, this is a view of the access road that serves Hill Farm, which is to the southeast of the site. The BESS will not be expected to be seen from this position on Whackton Road, given the vegetation intervening. Moving closer towards the proposal now, and stood just inside the hedgerow line to the southwest of the site. This view is looking northeast. The site will be seen here against the backdrop of the significant tree cover and the overhead lines above. Closer still, the view is generally here of the northeast. The BESS compound site being to the very right edge of the photo, and this image shows the general relative positions of the attenuation pond and the area of mounding with tree planting proposed in dashed green. The view towards the east shows the extent of the arable setting with Hill Farm in the background. This photo shows the gap in the hedgerow where some of the previous photos were taken, which would be in field. Now onto the area where there's the access road and footpath FP15 on the south, which serves Hill Farm. This view is looking to northeast. The site is generally screened at this point by the hedgerows to the field boundary. A landscape and visual impact assessment accompanies the application as part of a range of supporting documentation. This shows an example of the work undertaken, showing a view that's existing to the top and proposed on the bottom, looking north from the field edge boundaries and taken from the footpath Fawcett FP15. The BESS is in the below image, which can be seen in the dash green set against the backdrop of the tree cover. As per common practice, views from further away have been also considered. This example is set further away to southwest from Bustard's Green Road towards the site in the northeast, much of which will be screened by a variety of trees and vegetation. So, in conclusion, Chair, and taking the report as read, the key points are shown in the slide. There is strong in-principle support for energy proposals of this nature particularly under strong current and emerging national guidance, but also local policy too. However, in doing so, impacts have to be carefully considered, balanced, and wherever relevant, mitigated at the same time. In this case, some slight to moderate impacts have been noted in the landscape visual impacts from hedgerow gap wiring on Whackton Road and from construction generally. The latter is a temporary impact, namely across the expected 32-week duration. Further mitigation will be provided by additional planting. Other impacts include fire risk, which is subject to a detailed fire safety management plan. Construction traffic, this includes HGVs, which will be totaling around, on average, around about 3 HGV vehicles a day, arriving, departing the site. And ecological management is further subject to recommended conditions. There is also a number of limited but noted loss of grade 3 agricultural land. The recommendation is therefore to approve, subject to conditions listed. I just wanted to mention one brief update. I noticed only this morning that the condition numbering's gone a bit askew on the last page. So condition 20 and 21 should have just been one condition. So we will remove the 21 text and put that into condition 20 where it should be, and everything would move up one number. But other than that, the recommendation is to approve subject to the conditions, and obviously welcome any questions you have. Thank you.
Thank you, Richard. Can you just go through the first point in the update sheet about the National Fire Chief's document, grid scale battery storage systems?
So it's obviously an emerging technology is battery storage. It's been around for some years, but it is still developing. So at the update sheet, I've put a little note annotation saying that the current guidance, which the National Fire Chiefs Council use, which is called Grid Scale Battery Storage Systems, has been finally adopted as of the 9th of February last week. This document has been in an iterative process since 2023, and the application has been developed based on the guidance as it emerges and develops. And obviously this has been subject to the condition that's been recommended to provide the detail of the outlined battery safety management plan as the detailed design progresses. Norfolk Fire and Rescue Service have been heavily involved in the developing of the draft plan and raised no objections. So for the content up till now, we're quite content, but obviously as any detailed design develops on the site, that will be part of a condition which we'd still look to liaise and consult with Norfolk Fire and Rescue based on this latest updated guidance.
Thank you. And we've consulted with the fire service throughout this process, but they're not currently a statutory consultee.
That's correct.
Yeah, I think we need to change that. But members, questions, please. Lisa?
Thank you, Chair. Just one question, Richard, out of interest. On one of your pictures, the view looking west, it states there's a soil mound. Can I ask what the soil mound is for? Is that to sort of, if you like, block, help with the screening of the plant?
It's primarily to allow for the excavation of the attenuation pond, but it doubles up as allowing a little bit more height to then obviously plant up, and that provides, some good screening from day one, although obviously it will take time to mature and develop. But yes, that's essentially a sort of dual purpose, mainly to do with the attenuation pond, but it also benefits the screening as well at the same time.
Thanks, Chair. HGV routing plan on condition 10, is that also considering sort of like the batteries? We've seen some of the A47 stuff at the moment. I mean, is the roads being used for that plan suitable for that sort of manoeuvres?
Yeah, so we have got a draft construction traffic management plan. It has a routing plan within that, which basically would take all traffic would come off the A140. It will come via Swan Lane, Station Road, and into the site at Whackton Road. Obviously, there are other restrictions in the area, including things like the railway bridge, etc. that would prevent any traffic coming in an alternative route from the west. But essentially, this detailed management plan is the best route possible. Obviously, that will be subject still to a limitation in terms of the number of HGVs, generally expected to be around 3 per day. I can quickly run through. You've got a 15-week period of enabling works where you'd have circa around 5 HGVs per day. You then have a main construction phase, which would be about 13 weeks, and you would have around about 125 HGVs, so that's around about 2 per day. And then a post-construction period, which is only 4 weeks, which is around about 25 HGVs. Obviously, if there are, the construction management plan deals with if there are any need for abnormal loads, that will be liaised with the County Council Highways team, who haven't raised any objection to this. And there would be also matters like banksmen on site. There would be obviously other issues put into the management plan, such as once one vehicle has arrived at the site, another vehicle shouldn't come within 1.5 hours. So there's not two simultaneous moving traffic along the actual rural road network. So a lot of the detail is in that. Obviously, that is subject to condition. That will be worked up in finer form. But yes, that's basically what that management plan will do.
And just for clarity, this is not the size of the one on the A47.
No. It's,
Nowhere near, but just to be clear. Any more questions? No? So we're going to go into public speaking. Got nobody from the parish council. I've got Steve. Yep. Hello, Steve.
Hello.
If you'd like to come up here, please.
Oh, sorry, Steve from the parish council or Steve from the speak?
I've got Steve Gray.
Yep.
Yeah. So Steve is an objector on this application. So if you just sit down and I'll explain. You're going to have 5 minutes. We'll warn you with 1 minute to go. And when you turn, can you pull the microphone a bit closer to you so we can get a good sound? And when you start the microphone, please give your name for the record. Thank you.
Good morning, Chair, councillors, guests. Thank you for letting me speak. My name's Stephen Gray, with my wife Michelle, who's here today. We own the Grove, which is the heritage property mentioned in the report. If you're okay for me to start?
Yeah, go on.
Perfect.
Yeah.
So I'd like to mention 3 things today: need, impact, and risk. Let's start with need. There's no proven national or local need for this specific battery farm. If we look at the future targets, the UK government and the national grid models estimate a need for between 10 and 20 gigawatts of BESS by 2030, maybe rising to 30 by 2050. The independent Faraday Institute estimate the need is around half that. To put that in context, there's about 3.5 gigawatts currently operational. There is a massive pipeline development already of 95 gigawatts. So we already have in development 3 times what is actually needed by the top end estimate from National Grid, 6 times what is estimated as needed by the independent Faraday Institute. This BESS isn't needed. It's not needed here, and it's not needed at all. Second point, impact. Ignore the visual impact. House high fences, yeah, okay. The key impact during operation is owing to the cooling fans. Now, everyone has heard the fan in an electric oven when it's cooling down after use. Imagine 100 electric fans inside a shipping container, and the noise from the fans needed to keep them cool so they don't overheat and explode. Now multiply that noise by 50 shipping containers. Do you remember how annoying it is when you're trying to read and there's a hoover in the next room? I note the council hoovers, by the way, are specifically low volume. I spoke to the cleaner this morning to make sure they don't impact on council meetings. Or when you're sitting on a train and the person next to you has got earphones too loud, or when you're sitting in the garden and a nearby neighbour's got a leaf blower going. Remember that feeling of peace when the noise stops and the birds start singing again? That low-level hum, by the way, you can hear in the background, just audible, That's my wife playing a recording of a Bess. Now, the Bess noise never stops. On a sunny day, it actually gets louder as the fans have to work harder to cope with the heating. You destroy the peace and tranquility of the previously quiet Norfolk countryside with the beautiful photographs that you've just seen. The wildlife is not going to stay, including the kestrels that nest in the 200-year-old giant redwood that's on my property, and the bats that roost in the nearby trees. And as humans, our quality of life is directly affected, which is a real consideration under the Human Rights Act. Just out of curiosity, why not put all Bess where it's already noisy, like near a major road? That to me seems so much more sensible. Oh, by the way, none of the noise testing, as far as we're aware, undertaken by the proposers took place on the affected properties. We think it took place on the main road they discussed coming from Long Stratton. That's 2. 3, risk. That proactively published statement from the UK's National Fire Chiefs Council that was mentioned earlier actually concluded that although the likelihood of a fire is low, when fires do occur, they're very difficult to extinguish. They produce thermal runaway, which means the fire generates heat faster than it can extinguish it. I'm going to quote from their original statement. Where lithium-ion batteries burn, that would be a surprise, they produce oxygen. The chemical reaction in the battery continues to produce heat. This means these fires are very difficult to extinguish as water cannot access the battery cells. If a fire occurs, it could reignite even in the absence of oxygen. A 2020 fire in Liverpool lasted for 3 days. Risks to the public and the environment include toxic fumes, explosions, and long-term damage from water runoff. The proposal declares there's a fire station within 2 kilometres of the planned Bess. That's true. It's an unmanned, single-tender, volunteer fire station in Long Stratton. Between that Bess and that fire station is a gym, a doctor's surgery, a care home, and around 1,000 houses. Oh, one last thing to consider. The company building the Bess told us they've never built one before. They're going to build this the same way you and I would build an IKEA cabinet, by following somebody else's instructions. So to conclude, we don't need it. There is a real impact and there is a real and significant risk to the environment. Please reject this proposal. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. If you just stay there a second, are there any questions? No? Thank you. If you'd like to turn the machine off and then take your place, thank you.
Thank you for your time.
And we've got Tom. Hello, Tom. So you've got 5 minutes. We'll warn you with 1 minute to go. And when you turn on to speak, please give your name for the record.
To the right, is it?
Yeah.
My right. How's that?
You good?
Okay.
Off you go.
Okay, good morning, members. I'm Tom Poole from work for Care Renewables, who's the developer in this scheme. Firstly, thank you for the opportunity to speak, and to the case officer for the presentation and recommended for approval. As the case officer highlighted, the proposed energy storage facility would help to facilitate greater utilisation of renewable energy and strongly contribute towards energy security, reducing the reliance on foreign energy imports whilst delivering a more reliable electricity network. As members are likely aware, the UK government is committed to achieving net zero emissions by 2050. Meeting this target relies heavily on greater use of renewable energy whilst maintaining energy security and the reliability of the network. This was recognised by the government when they set the target to decarbonise the UK's energy network by 2035. This is also reflected locally. South Norfolk declared a climate emergency in 2023, along with a biodiversity emergency to counteract years of destruction to local ecology. The proposal responds through the delivery of low carbon development, as well as over 100% biodiversity gains, plus new hedgerow planting and replacement trees. Government guidance confirms that battery storage is a form of low carbon technology that will help the UK deliver on their climate change targets. Infrastructure to store energy is essential in supporting the usage of renewable energy, as many renewable technologies generate electricity intermittently, meaning energy must be stored for later use. This has led to all new low carbon development being afforded significant positive weight in the NPPF, with an increase to substantial positive weight in the draft national framework.
The site at Wacton Road represents an excellent opportunity to deliver vital low-carbon infrastructure in a sustainable location. The site is located in close proximity to existing overhead power lines. The site has been located at a suitable distance from existing properties to ensure there are no significant amenity issues. The proposal requires the crossing of a footpath for which details have been provided, including a banksman to ensure safety of all users throughout construction. The proposed development has also been designed with input from the local fire rescue service to minimise the risk and control any effect of fire. Fire suppression measures and 24/7 monitoring have been proposed to limit potential for any thermal runaway. The facility would be laid out with sufficient spacing to help prevent spread of fire and would include water tanks for use of firefighters in the unlikely event of fire. Drainage infrastructure has also been designed to retain any firewater to prevent any leaching of potentially contaminated water into the environment. With regard to fire risk, the Clean Flexibility Roadmap provides an overview of fire risk from battery storage. It states, grid-scale batteries pose no greater danger than other infrastructure. Battery storage developments are covered by a robust regulatory framework overseen by the Health and Safety Executive. This framework requires responsible parties to take measures to ensure health and safety throughout all stages of a battery system's development. Fires at grid-scale battery sites appear to be less likely than those at non-domestic buildings in general from all sources, and latest available 5-year annual average fire incidence rate for GP batteries is at 0.7%, and that covers the period between 2020 and 2025. It's lower than that for wider non-domestic building fires in England. Further, the likelihood of fire is decreasing year on year as technology and safety measures progress. The proposed development is essential infrastructure which is necessary to reliably deliver renewable energy. I would urge you to support your officer's recommendation and approve the application without delay. Thank you.
Any questions, members? Yeah, Lisa, and then John.
Thank you. Can I just ask the cooling system where it has water that sprays on the batteries and that water will then go into attenuation tanks which are buried. I'm trying to find it on here, but I'm sure I read that then that water will slowly be released into ditches around the site. Is that correct?
No, not entirely correct. The
Right.
drainage system is lined. So if water goes into the attenuation pond, which it all drains to, if there were an incident, there's an automatic shut-off valve which stops any water leaching out from, or escaping out from that retention basin. The water will be retained there. The volume calculations for the basin allow for all the fire water that Norfolk Fire and Rescue have asked for, and sort of an extreme weather event. There's sufficient capacity there to hold all that water, and the water would then be treated, either tanked off site to be treated, or depending on what the issue was, it could be treated on site and retained as future fire water.
So, sorry, just
So basically the water
ignorance,
can't escape. The water can't escape. It's a lined tank.
What I was just going to ask is, obviously with the water that is sprayed continuously on the batteries, I assume, where does that all go then? Because to me that's quite a lot of water that is going to be used, and is that recycled, or how does that work? Because the attenuation tank isn't going to be able to hold all of that.
The volume calculator, it's all submitted within our application. If you go into there, you will see all the calculations are in there for how much water that needs to hold. The water tank itself, as the fire service request, is 228,000 litres. The attenuation basin will take that, and as I say, all the calculation done for an extreme weather event. That's why we have, as you see, such a large attenuation pond. This is standard for this type of scheme. You need to do the calculation to ensure you can withhold all that
I'm
water.
not disputing that, and it's not the fire bits of it. I'm just trying to get my head that, if the batteries are going to be sprayed permanently every day for the time this is, there, the years and years, where is all of that water going? Because that attenuation basin is not going to cope for 30 years. It is going to fill up at some point, and what happens then?
Sorry, the shut-off valve is only closed at the point of an event. The water drains out through a drainage channel. This is all submitted in our flood risk assessment.
Yeah,
drainage
so
plan.
that is what I was saying. I'm not talking about an event. I'm talking about
yes,
when it's full.
There's a drainage pipe that goes out to Wacton Road by the access road. So in normal circumstances, that will drain away and into the watercourse.
So into ditches or...
Correct.
And will it be... I'm just concerned, sorry Chairman, is it okay if I carry on? We have like nutrient neutrality, which I'm sure you've heard of with development, and I appreciate this doesn't fall under that, but is the water that is coming out of there, is it clean?
All this was
Like-
submitted in flood risk assessment, and the LLFA are happy with our proposal that it meets all standards required.
Tom, we've heard your presentation about the non-risk details. I just wonder what your comments on the objectors' comments on the overproduction of renewable energy on this site.
Fair enough. We do know there's a lot of battery applications gone in there to the point of there will be a surplus in terms of applications into the system. However, what I would say to that is NESO targets are the minimum required to hit government aims, and at a particular dates they're saying this is what we need to get to that point. As was all previously just mentioned, there is only a small 3 to 4 gigawatts of batteries delivered. 27 gigawatts is the minimum that we're looking at. We know that with electrification and demand, it's going to go up and up and up. And and the big shortfall we see at the minute in terms of a shift to clean energy is the ability to store. And as we've just seen in Portugal and Spain last year, is that lack of frequency control, which has brought down their electrical system. We need battery systems, not just to provide storage from renewable energy, but also to control that frequency. Where exactly these are sited would be something that's defined by the DNOs and the national grid. So for us, we make an application to the grid and they tell us this is what we need there, and that's how we develop. So how many of those schemes will stay in the system also? Because National Grid's figures are only based on grid knowledge. It has no input from the planning system or deliverability of those schemes. So we will see a high attrition rate of schemes that have just been put in, but what will actually be delivered will be very different from that. And we're very confident with our industry that it'll be a colossal challenge to hit those government targets.
Okay, John. Any more, Dave?
Thank you, Chair. A few questions from myself. One following on from Councillor Overton here. Obviously, the drainage system is looking at water and flood events, but kind of no expert in the area, but I'm guessing you're not going to know a battery's leaking until you've got an event. So effectively, what control systems have you got to know that anything pollutant is leaking into that attenuation? I guess your valve's going to shut off when there's an event. That doesn't mean that something's not leaking or being contaminated to that water prior to that event.
I'm not a battery manufacturer, so I don't want to start saying exactly what they're going to do. And a battery manufacturer partnership will be something that's agreed as you move on without planning consent. You're not at that point yet as to what's commercially available, but I do know that all the battery manufacturers now have to provide full information on that, and any leaching is retained within the container that you saw. It's caught at that point, and these containers are monitored 24/7 at a really low cell level. So there's the monitoring is all there.
Right, so the water level, the water that's leaving those containers has some way of being monitored for its levels of any contaminants.
I couldn't answer that, but
Okay.
I know that the batteries are contained units that have to capture anything that's within that. So I don't want to start giving you detail that I'm not.
Right. The other question I've got is regards the building of this site. Are you building it without a connection, or will you not build until you have a grid connection?
We have a grid offer from UKPN, but if we get a consent, we will then go back to UKPN and request a connection date, and we won't get that before we have a consent, and from that you would then build your construction programme when you know what you're working to.
Lovely, so you're not planning to build until you've physically got that consent then?
Correct.
Thank you.
Tracy, is that something that's in the conditions? That the connection and the build? Sorry if you turned that. Shut me up.
Sorry, mine won't work if yours is on. It's not currently in the proposed condition. It is something that we could explore. What that would look like is a Grampian condition requiring no development to commence on this site until a connection is secured. So that is something that we could explore. I think we just want to take some advice as to whether that meets the appropriate tests, but I think that is a potential additional condition that you could seek to add, subject to us satisfying ourselves that that's Reg 122 compliant.
I don't know if it's been said, but the connection is the key thing, and not everything, I think you just said, would get a connection. So that would be something I think members seek to do that. Yeah. And do we have to authorise you to do it, or do we put it in as a condition?
I think the resolution is to add a further condition, Grampian condition around securing grid connection. For officers to resolve if that's appropriate. So I think we just want the ability to if we consider that isn't appropriate, then we wouldn't add it. But certainly if it's lawful, then we will.
Okay. Any more questions, gents? No? Thank you very much. If you'd like to go back to your seat. So we've no other public speakers. So members, I'm going to open it for thoughts and comments. Dave, start.
Hi, Chair. Two thoughts have come in mind at the moment. One is where was the noise impact taken? I think that's something that's important to know because it's an element that's been raised in public speaking. My other concern I've got with this, and it's down to the officers, or like the agent, obviously the organisation building it don't know enough about the batteries, and nor do we, to be fair, as councillors. What protections can we put in place with regards to water contamination? Because at the moment, it's a bit hard for us knowing what to do, because either us nor the actual company know enough about the batteries to decide whether we're creating an issue or we're not, or we're protecting waterways correctly.
Yeah, thanks. So just taking the first point on the noise impact, I did note the comments made. So there is a full noise impact assessment. There was 2 monitoring posts on the site where they recorded the background noise levels. I haven't got a slide to show you, but maybe what I might just do is if I just move my mouse. So the first one is here, which was monitoring point 2, Round Hill Farm, and the other one, which is monitoring point 1, is here, just in that corner there. Then what the noise impact assessment does is it looks at sensitive receptors, 4 particular sensitive receptors. So one which is Hill Farm, which is sensitive receptor R3, the collection of properties here at the Grove, which is R1, further property here on Waxton Road, which is R2, and then further to the north there's an estate. If I can just go to Google Maps, might just help. Here, which is on this cul-de-sac arrangement here, that's R4. So basically, the noise impact assessment looked in detail at the background levels. It does predict that there will be, as with most of these things, it will be an audible level, but at an effect that would not be noticeable. So to your day-to-day life in terms of background noise or existing background noise. There's also a suite of conditions that the Environmental Health Officer has recommended, because he's content with the scheme. He wants to make sure that obviously what's shown in that noise impact assessment is actually delivered on site. So there's controls around the plant that's detailed in that application in terms of the noise levels that it will reach. There's a condition that will be monitored for 3 months and make sure that what it says on the paper actually happens in reality. And obviously, they are part of controls that we would need to monitor as part of discharge conditions. So yes, there is that noise impact assessment. I think it has been quite robustly done. As far as I can tell, it meets industry standards according to the Environmental Health Officer, and his prediction that it would meet the, if I can just bring it up, just bear with me, the no observed adverse effects level, which is an appropriate level of noise within background noise level. So in effect, at the actual sensitive receptors that we've been talking about, those properties, it shouldn't be noticeable beyond the background levels. That said, there will be, you will hear the particular units operating. There will be that acoustic fence to obviously baffle that, and at the boundaries of these properties, that shouldn't be noticeable, certainly at a level which disrupts the residential amenity. The other thing was on the water contamination issue. We do have what was condition 27, which will be condition 26 now, which is the detail of the drainage strategy. So how we would capture that water coolant, the liquid coolant. Obviously, I would expect that to be treated on site before it is released into the drainage network, which is pretty typical. Obviously, Tom's talked about in the event of obviously an actual incident, and obviously yes, there is a shut-off valve on the lagoon that would prevent that water, which would be used for any firefighting, being let back out into the wider watercourse. So that would be treated if there was ever an incident. But in terms of day-to-day operation, we would, the lead local flood authority didn't raise any objections, but we would condition that detail around the sort of how it's cooled and how that's treated on site before it's let back into the surrounding network. So that's condition 26 now.
So will the attenuation pool have a runoff rate?
Yeah, that's designed to greenfield runoff rate. If obviously that ever is used, but I think it's not expected to obviously exceed that greenfield runoff rate. I think it's been designed with climate change in mind. So there's a lot of capacity there, and it's mainly there designed to obviously aid in the event of a fire, as well as obviously any drainage. In terms of the actual compound, based on some permeable drainage construction, so it's a sort of gravel construction, so there's very little surface water runoff from the actual footprint of the site. It's more just obviously treating the cooling system and that sort of thing.
Sorry, Chair. So the water that's coming out of the containers, will there be either some system that monitors it? I think my concern here, if we're putting water into a system where we think it's safe, but we don't know that. I mean, the shut-off valve, I guess, is there because someone's manually or automatically got to do that because it's an event. Do we have any monitoring, or is there any monitoring that effectively water can be, or can the company put in a monitoring that, like rivers and that, can we have a regular monitoring of the water? Because I think that's the concern with all pollutants building up, that we find out, months down the line, have caused damage, but we could have effectively monitored it.
Can we, with that, pass the tests?
Yes, and Richard's set out, we've got a proposed condition already, which would be a detailed design for that drainage in terms of how that drainage is treated from the kit into the drainage system. That will and can include details of how that coolant and any pollutants are treated and monitored. So we absolutely can deal with that, and that would be done in liaison with our environmental services team as well, to make sure that we're comfortable what those proposed measures are going to protect the environment. Yeah,
I think I'll be comfortable as long as we're doing some regular water monitoring, that just to make sure that I think they'll be comfortable with that. I would be.
I think Tracy's just covered that. Yeah. Any other?
Can I just just ask Tracy? You reassured me, but is that down as a condition on here? Is that
26.
That's the landscaping, the drainage
27.
strategy and design. Does that cover that?
That's condition 26, drainage strategy and design. So that will include the specific details around anything that's necessary around contamination, control of such in that relevant condition.
Reassures me. Thank you.
Trevor?
Yeah, Richard, you said there was receptor noise monitoring in the housing, but earlier on we heard from the residents that they thought there wasn't any monitoring done at that site, so there's obviously a difference in opinion. And you said there will be follow-up monitoring at the same receptor, so will there be follow-up monitoring at the housing at one of them? And I don't know if this can be put in at all. Can that be fed back to the residents, because obviously they're not aware of that monitoring?
Yeah, I mean the publicly available noise impact assessment online, it shows the monitoring points that were used. Obviously the is they look at based on those 2 monitoring points, what the prediction would be in terms of those sensitive receptors based on their distance. And obviously, yeah, as you know, as far as I can tell, this was all obviously formally done on site. I can just try and quickly find when it was actually the work was undertaken. I think the Environmental Services Officer, Health Officers reviewed it in its content, but yes, there is obviously that condition as well applied for the 3 months monitoring. We can certainly, you know, make that obviously as part of the discharge condition publicly available information as to how they're monitoring it and how they're actually achieving those noise levels. So that's 3 months after first operation. I'll just see if I can find. Normally, it's a very detailed document, but just see if I can find when exactly it was done. I'll maybe come back to you. I'll try and find out exactly the dates of when that was done. Oh, here we are. So it was taken between Thursday the 30th of January 2025 and Tuesday the 4th of February 2025. So that was undertaken, that measuring work.
But that could be made, the monitoring results could be very visibly publicly available.
So they're on the website. Yeah, and accessible. Any more thoughts and things? No? So we'll go to the recommendation. And I think we've got, is it one or two more?
Sorry, Chair. So we've got the the conditions are moving up one, just so because there's a numbering error on it.
Right.
And so that means that they will all move up one from condition 20. So meaning that drainage strategy, the last one will be 26. But you've also got that extra with the recommendation about the
Ramping condition. Yeah.
But subject to obviously the tests going through with it as well.
So members, when you're voting, understand that we've included that in the conditions. So approve subject to conditions. All those in favour, please raise your hand.
Is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in favour, Chair,
Against?
and 2 against, Chair, so that's carried.
No abstentions.
And no abstentions.
So that's 5-2, yeah? Thank you. So we're going to move on to number 2. Okay. Yeah. Which is Happy Meadows and Keswick Hall Road, Keswick. I don't know. think we'll get started. Sarah and Lisa can catch up in a second. So we're going to Keswick Happy Meadows.
Thank you. So this is an application for the change of use of land from agricultural equestrian use with the intermittent use for caravan into a use for agricultural and equestrian use still, and also for the siting of 2 gypsy and traveller pitches. This is a partly retrospective application. One of the pitches is currently on site. So in terms of its location, you can see it outlined in red here. For those of you who were at the January Planning Committee, by coincidence, obviously we had this application here at Bertie's Barn, which they are unrelated applications, but you'll probably be a little bit familiar with Keswick Hall Road as we get to some of the photographs, this is Keswick Hall Road here. We've got Keswick Hall over here. So from this section of Keswick Hall Road, this then becomes a private road, and we've got the A47 down here. So just to give a little bit of that wider context of the site, so obviously you see a bit more detail around sort of where Keswick Hall. This is the B1113. There is bus stops sited along here, and we will talk a little bit about the connectivity of this site as well. Obviously, it's not particularly distant from Keswick Hall in terms of that connectivity section. So in terms of the site itself, we've got, this is the application as it came forward. The red line has been amended as part of this application. So as part of the original application, the gypsy and traveller pitches were sited down in this section of the site here. And the pitch that is currently being occupied is also located down here. We've then got paddocks and we've got some stables up here which have all got separate planning permissions for them. Then as part of this application, as part of the amendments, the location of the pitches has moved from this southern extent into this northeastern corner here. And that is to do with noise impacts from the A47 as the reason for that relocation of the pitches within the site. So in terms of considering gypsy and traveller applications, we have Policy 5 of the Greater Norwich Local Plan, and that sets out that sites would be allocated for gypsy and traveller pitches. That would be 38 allocations across the plan period, and it also sets out that a further 12 pitches would be expected to come forward as windfall provision. So this isn't an allocated site. This has come forward outside of that allocation process. Now, in relation to Policy 5, it did set out the requirements for considering sites that come forward on as windfall allocations. So that looked at the location and connectivity of that site. So we are located outside of a defined settlement boundary here, but Policy 5 does set out that in terms of gypsy and traveller provision, whilst they can be located inside the settlement boundary, sometimes it is accepted that they will be located outside of a settlement boundary. It sets out that they should be within reasonable travelling distance of schools, shops and services. And preferably we'd have that access via foot, cycle or public transport, but it's not required to be connected by foot, cycle or public transport. So in terms of that connectivity, so Keswick Hall Road doesn't have pedestrian footpaths on it. And that's the same all along Keswick Hall Road. There isn't any public footpaths, but the Highways Authority have looked at it and they haven't objected on that basis. There is public transport available from the bus stops. If I just go back up here, and that provides a half-hourly service to and from Norwich. So the site under Policy 5 must have suitable vehicle access, and the Highways Authority have looked at that in terms of this site, and they have confirmed that they are happy with the access onto Keswick Hall Lane. So there is 2 accesses within the site, which you can see here. So this is the existing access, and I've got some photos which will show you that, and that's always served this parcel of land and being used for sort of looking after the horses on the land. And there's going to be a secondary access in here which will then serve the pitches themselves. And like I said, the Highways Authority have reviewed this and they've confirmed that they are happy with the proposal. We have just got a condition around putting a passing place onto Keswick Hall Road. In terms of the going back to policy 5, another requirement is around that there must be suitable landscaping around the site. So at the moment, and we'll see on the pictures, this site is very open and it's very visible. We have got some landscape treatment being proposed as part of this application, and I'll show it on the, we've got a zoomed in version of this image in a minute, but there is landscaping being proposed along this boundary, sort of new hedge planting, which we've got a condition to secure, which will help to screen the site, and also have those ecology benefits as well by providing that that new hedgerow, and there's some here as well. And then the final requirement is that it must be of an appropriate scale to its surroundings. I think important in this case, we are looking at 2 pitches. We're not looking at a very large site. We are looking at two pitches. It's not, which is considered to be acceptable in this location as well. And the other element in terms of gypsy and traveller provision that we need to talk about is, so we also have policy DM 3.3 within our local plan, but the other requirement we do have is the requirement for a 5-year land supply for gypsy and travellers, very similar to what we have for housing. It's a separate calculation from our standard housing calculation, but we have to be able to demonstrate that 5-year land supply of pitches for gypsy and travellers. At the moment, the council cannot demonstrate a 5-year land supply. As I sort of set out earlier, there have been a number of allocations made through the Greater Norwich Local Plan. Unfortunately, a number of those haven't progressed at this stage. That is predominantly due to the challenges of nutrient neutrality, which has slowed some of those pitches down from coming forward. So we do need to look at this in terms of the fact that we cannot demonstrate a 5-year land supply as well. So coming into the details of the pitches, so this is just that northeastern corner a bit zoomed in. We have 2 pitches. They are would be a static caravan, so we've got 2 static caravans, and we have a day room as well. That's very common. So what you would typically find on a gypsy and traveller site, I know we don't see huge numbers of them coming before you, is you would normally see a static caravan, a day room, and then obviously a touring caravan as well. In this case, we've only got the 1 day room for the 2 pitches. The proposal is it is a shared family site, so that would be a shared day room for them, and that incorporates sort of the bathroom facilities and the kitchen facilities. Now, in terms of the site itself, it has been moved to this location, and that is to do with noise. I know we've just been talking about noise from a site, and it's slightly different. This is the noise impact of the A47 impacting the amenity of the people living on this site in future. So originally, obviously, we were at the southern part of the site, much closer to the A47. We have had a noise impact assessment undertaken, and that's one of the reasons why the proposal is to move it into this northeastern corner of the site, which is about the furthest point on the site away from the A47. In addition to that, there's a number of pieces of mitigation that need to be provided to make it so that the noise level is acceptable in terms of people living on this site. So we have a gabion wall proposed around the site here, and that would be 2.5 metres high, and that helps to just muffle that noise. And then in terms of the mobile homes themselves as well, there is mitigation being proposed for those that we would require that to be installed, and that includes elements such as ensuring that it's double glazing on the windows, fitting new insulation into the static caravans themselves, fitting a skirt around the bottom of them, just to make sure that that reduces that noise impact from the A47. And when all of those elements are taken together, the noise impact is considered to be acceptable for the future residents of that site. And then by the positioning of the caravans and the gabion wall as they are, their main amenity areas will also have acceptable levels of noise. So that's been looked at very closely with our environmental quality team. So just to take you on into the day room, it's not a huge structure, and again we would have noise mitigation in terms of the windows on this as well, and the types of cladding. But you can just see it just has those kitchen facilities and those bathroom facilities there for the occupants to use. So taking you on to some photos of the site. So this is taken onto Keswick Hall Road. This is the new access which is proposed for where those pitches will be in this location here. And this is just looking into the site here. So it's sort of in this area here where those pitches would be. And this is where we're getting that new hedgerow planting coming in along here. So that will help to screen the site from those wider views on Keswick Hall Road. It is quite open at the moment. You'll also be able to see just at the back of the site, we do have the pylons that go along the A47. They're just off the site there. This was a slightly nicer day when I went out and took these photos compared to the last day. So this is standing within the site. You can see the existing stables that have got planning permission for them. And so the site will be here. These trees are typically on the other side of Keswick Hall Road. Just help to screen the site. Again, this is the existing access, that's going to be retained as well, and this is used to access at the moment for the horses on the site. And again, this is just looking in, so we can see the caravan that's currently on the site at the moment. So as part of this, obviously these will be looking at moving that to that northeastern corner. And again, just to sort of so you can see the caravan that's on site at the moment. There. And then this is just swinging around within the site. So this is Bertie's Barn, which is the nearest neighbour to the site. So obviously that's the application that got consent at the last planning committee for the conversion to residential use. As we discussed at that last committee, they do host weddings, which we do control the number of weddings they can host a year. And you can just see that the tents were up at the time. So they're the nearest neighbours. And then beyond that, the nearest neighbours are at Keswick Hall. So this is Keswick Hall Road. It is quite a narrow road, so it is got restricted access along Keswick Hall Road, or restricted vehicle access along Keswick Hall Road. And like I said, the Highways Authority have confirmed that they would not object to this site, subject to a passing place being provided. Just to provide a little bit of details, just to show you where those bus stops are in terms of the connectivity of the site. So the bus stops are up here. There is footpath provision through to the main bits of Keswick, and also sort of longer routes through into Cringleford. In terms of that connectivity, whilst it isn't what we would normally ideally look for if we were looking for a new site, it's very similar to, obviously there is that recognition within Policy 5 that there might not be footpath provision for gypsy and traveller sites, and I would sort of set out the footpath provision is very similar to, or the same as residents at Keswick Hall would be experiencing. So just in terms of the proposal, obviously we cannot currently demonstrate a 5-year land supply. Whilst I haven't engaged the tilted balance within the report, because the site is affected by nutrient neutrality, there is considered to be solutions to demonstrating nutrient neutrality. So I think members need to have that in mind in terms of the applicants are likely to will then be going for credits or some form of credit solution or mitigation to deal with nutrient neutrality, which would mean that our policies can't be considered to be up to date if the tilted balance is applied. But notwithstanding that, we've always had that expectation within Policy 5 that we will still need to grant windfall sites coming forward across that plan period, and we'll need to grant at least 12 pitches as windfall over the plan period to meet our current levels of need. So in terms of the proposal, it's for 2 pitches, and as I set out, it is for a family group here. We haven't got any statutory objections on the site. We do have conditions around the impact on amenity for the residents of the site around noise. The Highways Authority have also confirmed that they are comfortable with the proposal, and subject to securing those information around nutrient neutrality and dry rams, we're recommending it to you for approval.
Thank you, Sarah. Just on that point of the road and where the passing point is there any idea where that's going to be, given that we've just done a property just along the road? Do we have any information on that?
So we haven't got the details of where it would be just yet, but that the Highways Authority are requiring a passing point to come in, and I think we're confident it can be delivered along that road. I think there is opportunities there for a passing point to come in.
Okay, thank you. Members, questions only to the officer? Gary first, you haven't spoken yet, and then...
Thank you, Tim. Just for clarification, obviously they've got a new entrance, which obviously doing. Is that entrance going to be upgraded in any way? Like obviously is it going to be like a tarmac entrance? Because obviously looking at it, and I'm thinking of a very wet day, if that's got 3 or 4 movements a day on a very wet day, like we've had the last God knows how long, obviously that mud could be getting onto the road. So I'm just thinking, is that going to be similar to the entrance that's already there?
Yes, it will need to be. I think it's fair to say when I went out the other week, they've started to put it in, but that's not at the level that we would require it to be in. It would need to be, you know, a properly surfaced entrance so that it is very muddy there at the moment. I don't think it stopped raining. But yeah, so we would require it to be properly sort of surfaced so that we're not getting a lot of mud and things onto the road. That would be the highway authority would require that as well.
Dave?
I noticed a comment about waste collections, but eagle-eyed me spotted a South Norfolk Council waste bin there, so I'm kind of assuming that the waste department doesn't have any issues with collecting waste from this site, just to clarify.
So we haven't had any comments from them, but they would be able to collect, we'd be confident they'll be able to collect waste from the site, and I presume, yes, on those photos they probably already are.
I know this area, but I don't know very well. Is Keswick Road a dead end at this point?
Yeah, so this slide probably shows it a little bit better. It sort of, it finishes here really, and then you've got a public right of way that extends up here, but it is from this point here, it is restricted vehicle access along that road, so it is basically a dead end there.
Yeah, I know from the diagram there's two static homes and one touring caravan, and there's only one day room to serve all those people. Section 5.5 in your report mentions about the 5-year supply, and then other considerations that can be taken into consideration, which is limiting the number of days for additional caravans, because that shows one caravan, but what if more caravans turn up? So is it worth looking at some of the aspects of that section, paragraph 11D, which could be put in, like limiting the number of additional caravans, limiting the number of days they can stay, other locations? Is that something that could be done?
Yes, that is something that we can do. I think probably considering this a little bit further, it would be worthwhile to make sure that we restrict the any residential occupation of the site to just this northeastern corner, and I think that would be important in terms of just the noise impacts of the wider site, because you know, obviously we have gone to the applicants have gone to a lot of effort in terms of the noise impact on the site to make sure that to mitigate those impacts. So we can look at just restricting to that area, and then we could also look at restricting caravans to a certain period or a certain number of visits.
Yeah, I would just add, obviously, the consent that would be granting if that was the position, the plan clearly shows 2 caravans and a day room. So that's what they would have consent for permanently. I think the paragraph you're referring to, Councillor Graham, relates to kind of visitors, etc. But absolutely, what kind of Sarah's clarifying is that I think what we would look to add is a restriction in terms of only visiting caravans where they can be located in that top corner, and I think we'd need to look at whether or not we restricted number of days. But I think if you can delegate that to officers in terms of whether that's necessary, clearly the constraints around that site area will naturally restrict numbers that can come onto the site in any event. But we do think it would be useful to put some sort of restriction in terms of location for visiting caravans.
Tom is the agent for this application. If you take that one, please, because we've got the camera set up for you.
Press the road.
So please smile at all times. So you've got 5 minutes.
Yes.
We'll warn you with 1 minute to go.
Yeah.
And as you start to speak, please give your name.
Yes. My name is Tom Beer. I'm the planning agent for Samantha Scott. Before I begin, I'd just quite like to say that, to acknowledge that Samantha has been unwell and was in hospital last night undergoing tests for heart-related issues. And despite that, she very much wanted to be here today and has made the effort to be here with Scott. And I'm sure members will join me in wishing her a speedy recovery. Yeah, hope you're right, Sam. I'm going to speak quite quickly because I've got
That's
5
good.
minutes and I've got a lot to get in. I'm echoing a lot of Sarah's points. This is a modest proposal for 2 Gypsy and Traveller pitches at Happy Meadows. 1 mobile home is already on the site. The application seeks to regularise that position and provide stability and certainty for the family. I'll address 5 brief points. Firstly, compliance with Policy 5. Policy 5 is the windfall policy for the Greater Norwich Local Plan, and it supports windfall gypsy and traveller pitches. Gypsy and traveller pitches can come forward within or outside settlement boundaries, provided that certain criteria are met, and this proposal meets those criteria, as Sarah's pointed out. The site is within reasonable traveller distance of Norwich and associated services. Reliance on private vehicles is typical for rural traveller sites and is policy compliant and accepted in the officer's report. Highways confirm no sustainable objection. Passing places, as we discussed, can be secured by condition. Additional landscaping, including new hedgerow planting along the northeastern boundary with Keswick Road, will improve screening and can be secured by condition. The proposal is modest in scale, located in one corner of a larger site that remains predominantly open. There is no identified policy conflict. Number 2, identified accommodation need. Again, echoing Sarah's points, the Greater Norwich Gypsy and Traveller Accommodation Assessment identifies a need for 53 pitches between 2022 and 2038. To meet that need, the local plan anticipated 38 pitches from allocations made up of 7 sites, around 10 pitches at Ketteringham Depot, and at least 12 pitches through windfall delivery. I'd like to stress that windfall provision is not speculative. This is explicitly built into the strategy and it relies upon it. Recent changes to planning policy for traveller sites definition has been broadened and eligibility to those with a cultural tradition of caravan dwelling is now included. This is likely to increase accommodation need further, very likely, and the delivery of culturally appropriate accommodation is therefore all the more pressing. Number 3, lack of a 5-year supply. As discussed, the officer report confirms that none of those 7 allocated sites in the GNLP have currently progressed to a planning consent or delivery, not one apparent, as far as I'm aware. As a result, Greater Norwich cannot demonstrate a 5-year supply. This is a significant material consideration. Under planning policy for traveller sites and paragraphs 11 of the NPPF, where there is no 5-year supply, authorities must plan positively and grant permission unless harm significantly and demonstrably outweighs the benefits. Officers have identified no such significant harm, and the benefits to Sam and Scott are clear. Number 4, the importance of windfall sites. As discussed, the plan already relies on 12 windfall pitches. Where provision has failed to come forward, reliance on windfall delivery becomes even greater. This proposal would deliver 2 pitches immediately. The family is already present. Approval would make a real and tangible contribution to meeting unmet need. Number 5, planning matters have been addressed through the planning process. This application has been live since 2024. As you know, during that time, we've engaged constructively with officers, responded positively to concerns as they've been raised. The layout was amended to move pitches further from the A47, as we discussed, ensuring amenity for residents for the lifetime of the development. An acoustic assessment was undertaken, mitigation solutions and recommendations have been proposed. Subsequently, the environmental quality team have withdrawn their objections subject to conditions. Landscaping, drainage, passing places, nutrient neutrality and gyrums are all secured by... Sorry. That's the minute, yeah. By condition or delegated agreement. Officers conclude that satisfactory living conditions can be achieved. And finally, regarding personal circumstances, this is not a speculative development. Samantha has lived on the land part-time since around 2009 and permanently from around 2016. The site is her home. The family has no alternative accommodation. Public sites are full, waiting lists are long, and besides, no other site would meet the specific needs of the family. As discussed, there are significant health concerns which within the family, and the proposal would provide stable accommodation and allow continued family support. Members are required to have regard to Article 8, the public sector equality duty, and the best interests of the child, as acknowledged in the officer's report. In conclusion, the proposal complies with Policy 5. There is an identified need. The Council cannot demonstrate a 5-year supply. Technical matters have been agreed throughout through conditions.
Can you come to your conclusion, please?
Yes, the family has an alternative accommodation. There is no policy basis for refusal. For those reasons, I respectfully ask members to follow the officer recommendation and grant planning permission. Thank you.
Thank you, Tom. If you just stay there a second, just turn your microphone off. So, any questions to Tom? No? You got off lightly, Tom. So if you'd like to take your place again, Deborah, district member. Oh, there you are, Deborah. I think you know the rules. So just give your name, please, when you speak.
Hello, thank you for allowing me to speak. My name's Councillor Deborah Sachs. I'm the ward member for Cringlefield Ward. I'm a chartered surveyor and a chartered town planner. And I have to say, I don't think that this report and this whole issue reflects very well on the planning system, which embarrasses me as a planner. This has been an issue since well before I was elected in 2023, and I think the application came in 2024. And here we are on February 26th discussing it. So I just wonder about the whole process of making this decision. It's an agricultural site. It was suitable for residential use. The owner could have promoted it, or the occupier could have promoted it through the call for sites or the VCHAP's proposed procedure. And so the question is why this didn't happen. Sure. It's a retrospective permission, so we know that, and as Tom has just explained, somebody's been living in a caravan on that site for some years, longer than I'd realised actually. So is this a suitable location for a caravan site? You've seen the track. Again, think about bringing a large static caravan down that narrow muddy track. Think about refuse collection vehicles going down that narrow muddy track. Think about the accesses. And the people that live in Keswick Hall who have to bypass in order to get to that site. There's a number of questions in there. The application doesn't clearly state that it's for 2 caravans and a day room, which is a permanent building, and a 2.5 metre gabion wall. These components are not described properly in the report. There's the question about biodiversity net gain not applying to a retrospective application, which makes me wonder why anybody trying to avoid BNG obligations doesn't just get on with their development and apply later. There's a question about the drainage. Septic tank and soakaway is proposed. If there's an issue about nutrient neutrality in this area, surely a proper treatment plant should be included, and I would suggest that at least an amendment is put in there for a proper sewage treatment plant. And we talk about the issue of footpaths. The access to the bus stop on Low Road is on the highway. The 2 accesses from Keswick Hall, for the whole of all the residents of Keswick Hall, are on a very narrow pavement, and certainly any school kids going to and from the bus stop at peak times have to negotiate the traffic. And again, one of the benefits that you could get out of this is a proper footpath along the access road from Keswick Hall to Low Road. And the plans don't even seem to have asked for that sort of thing. So these kind of improvements would make that a reasonable place to live, whereas at the moment it's an agricultural field down a very muddy, narrow track. So if you're minded to approve this, I would suggest that you refer it back for just those sorts of amendments on drainage and access, in order that the place is a good place for both the applicant and the other people in Keswick Hall to live. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Deborah. We have foul drainage in the conditions, so that would be dealt with, yeah. And highways have not made any objections to.
Yes, so just to confirm, we do have a condition around foul drainage, so we would need the details. I appreciate, obviously, they are on site in one pitch at the moment, obviously, but it's looking at in that new location. So we would need to get those details secured, and that would be in accordance with the drainage strategy and hierarchy. In terms of the footpath provision, highways haven't requested a footpath to connect through to the bus stops. I think obviously policy 5 does accept that there will be instances where there may not be footpath provision for gypsy and traveller sites. I don't think it would be reasonable to require a footpath all that way to the bus stops. I think obviously there's a significant number of residents already at Keswick Hall itself. They don't have a footpath to connect to those bus stops. I don't think it'd be reasonable to ask this one site for 2 gypsy and traveller pitches to provide all of that connectivity there as well.
And members, have you any questions for Deborah? Trevor?
So Sarah, yes, seeing as it was raised, the biodiversity net gain and not being applicable. Just for the record, could you clarify why?
So in respect to biodiversity net gain, we are, it's national planning policy. There are restrictions for the types of sites which are required to produce biodiversity net gain. Nationally, one of the restrictions says that if it's a retrospective application, you do not need to require biodiversity net gain. Now, I understand that that is probably something as a planner, it doesn't, to myself, it doesn't feel maybe right. I'm sure to members yourself that maybe doesn't feel right, but that is what the national planning says. I would say in terms of this application, they are putting in, as you can see on the screen here, new hedgerow planting all along here and along here. So there will be biodiversity benefits from this site. So we are still securing biodiversity benefits, and that is going to be conditioned. Looking ahead, not relevant at the moment, but I think government are looking at changing those biodiversity requirements, and actually sites like this could well in future come out of it, because it's, I think they're looking at increasing the size level before you actually you have to do BNG. But I appreciate it doesn't necessarily sound good when you say it's retrospective and you don't have to do it, but we have to work within national planning policy.
Okay, so Deborah, I hope that explains. So thank you for your time. We've got no other public speakers on here, so members, we're going to go to public speaking. Thoughts? And Dave, you want to start?
Just the day room, is that temporary construction or is that brick construction? Was we aware?
So it would be a sort of it's a timber construction for that day room. So it's, and it'll be timber clad, and obviously we'll clad as well.
Any more? No. Oh, Lisa.
Just not regarding the application, I was just going to declare, because I left the room, that's why I haven't I've kept quiet.
Yes,
and I
sorry.
won't be voting on the application.
Sorry, Councillor
so I
Overton
just
Hill.
thought I'd let you know.
Yes, so unfortunately you won't be able to vote on this one as you weren't present for the whole time. Thank you.
So we go to recommendation, authorise the Assistant Director of Planning to approve subject to satisfactorily addressing the requirements under the habitats regulations in regard to nutrient neutrality and GIRAMs. All those in favour?
Sorry, Chair, just to, we've got those extra restrictions on the area of use. And
Oh, yes,
also
sorry.
the other one, which was going to be Norfolk, was that? Yes, sorry.
So that would be on the bottom of the conditions.
Yeah, so it's around the caravans within that northeastern section, and also for officers to go away and look at any restrictions on the number of nights additional caravans can come onto
But
site.
that would be relative to the site inside the Gabion walls.
Yeah, so in terms of we'd restrict the whole site, so the caravans have to be inside this Gabion wall section, and we'd also look at restrictions for any visiting, how long that could be. So we'd go away, yeah, and how many. So we'd go away and have a look at that as well.
Yeah. So members in the vote are going to include that. So all those in favour, please raise your hand.
Chairman, that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in favour, Chair.
Against?
None against.
Abstention?
And 1 abstention, Chair, so that's carried.
Thank you. Right, members, we'll do the next one and then we might have a quick break. Just get through this next one quickly. So we're going to go to lands south of Potash Farm, Potash Lane, Hethel.
What's Lisa's interest?
Sorry?
What's Lisa's interest?
No, she left the room, so she couldn't go.
Oh, right.
I tried to wait, but she was a bit too long.
Thank you, Chairman. Good morning, members. The application before you today is for the stationing of a temporary static caravan as a rural workers' dwelling on land at Potash Farm in Hethel. The reason for referral to committee today is that at the request of the local ward members on the basis, excuse me, on the basis that they consider the application to meet the requirements of national and local planning policy for the temporary siting of a caravan for a rural worker. They also consider the application has economic, social and environmental benefits. This slide, excuse me, I do apologise. The slide above illustrates the red line boundary of the application site. The site lies in the countryside, in a countryside location and forms the northern section of an existing agricultural field. Proposed access is from Potash Lane to the west, just here. Land within the ownership of Potash Farm is illustrated by the blue line. I will briefly describe the history of the site, which is relevant to the consideration of the application. The land of Potash Farm was originally purchased in 1997 by Mr. and Mrs. Howlett. In 1999, the dwelling immediately north of the farm, Hethel Hall Cottage, was acquired to provide their accommodation, though it's not an agriculturally tied dwelling. In 1997, Park End Bungalow was also purchased. This unit was subject to an agricultural occupancy condition and it was occupied by workers of Potash Farm. The agricultural tie continued to this date and the property remains within the ownership of Mrs. Anne Howlett, the former operator of the site, who retired in 2022 when the farm operation ceased. Mr. and Mrs. Michael and Michelle Howlett, the son and daughter-in-law of the former owners and the applicants for the application, currently live with Anne Howlett at Hethel Hall Cottage on an informal basis. The bungalow is currently occupied by an employee, Mr. David Brown. It is the intention of the applicants to move to the bungalow, with the employee, Mr. Brown, moving to the static caravan. Mrs. Anne Howlett would remain at Hethel Hall Cottage. Mrs. Michelle Howlett is the owner and director of the poultry business since the farm was re-established in January 2025. Mr. Brown was recently re-employed by the applicant on a full-time basis. This is an aerial image which has been included to show the wider context of the site. The application site is indicative illustrated in red. Potash Farm is located in Hethel, a dispersed village west of Mulbarton. The site is east of the Lotus Centre, which is here, and is access of Potash Lane, which runs down here, if you can see. The former farm complex was formed of 2 chicken sheds, one of which is now back in operation. The Hethel Hall Cottage is located to the north of the farm, up here. The agriculturally tied dwelling, Park End Bungalow, is located here to the south of Hall Road. A private drive connects the property to the wider farm down here. There's a dog field just here, which was approved in 2024, and former Chicket Unit 1, which has been vacant since 2022, has recently been subject to an application for demolition of the existing barn and change of use to land for the self-storage facility of 62 storage containers for use in B8. This was recently approved as detailed within the update papers. To the south, further south here, is the 389th Memorial Exhibition, which has now ceased. And then further south is the Unit 2, which is currently in operation, accommodating 12,000 chickens. It's notable that principle of development for static caravan as a rural workers dwelling on the operations of this farming unit has previously been accepted in 1999, and it was located just north of the exhibition centre here. However, the policy context within which the application was considered has been significantly updated since this approval. The local plan has been updated in this case, as have the site circumstances. The approved unit was located to the east of the memorial buildings, and this permission has now expired and has not been renewed. The temporary permission was granted on the basis of the combined need and operation of both units, 1 and 2, the poultry sheds, and the northern shed is no longer operational, as previously mentioned. I've included the following images to give context to the site. On the right, this is a view from Cranes Road looking towards Hethel Hall Cottage, which can be seen in the distance. This is a private road. And then this is an image extracted from the application document showing Park End Bungalow from Hall Road. This is the view of Unit 1, the one that's to be demolished, and the dog walking field that's been improved. And this is just a photo showing the Memorial Centre, which has now ceased to operate. Moving to the site plan. Forgive me. Let me just see. Sorry, this one, yeah. Under paragraph 84 of the NPPF, the development of isolated dwellings should be avoided unless special circumstances are met. Specifically, an application must demonstrate an essential or objective need for a rural worker to reside permanently at their place of work. Policy DM11 of the local plan relates to the provision of agricultural and occupational dwellings in the countryside. Proposals for development in the countryside to meet the housing needs of full-time workers in agriculture and connected to the land will be permitted only where they meet specific tests. In the case of all enterprises, there is a requirement to demonstrate functional need for one or more full-time workers to be readily available at all times on the enterprise, and the functional need could not be met by another existing dwelling in the area that is available or suitable. Excuse me. The requirements of C, D and E of the policy are relating to the provision of accommodation for an established site and do not apply in this case. Part F requires the farming operations to demonstrate economic viability. Where this is not possible, temporary permission can be sought, as in this case. To address Part A, the application is supported by a functional need a statement of functional need, detailing why the application considers more than one full-time worker is required to be readily available at all times associated with the enterprise, and the accommodation is necessary to be provided on site. The existing poultry unit houses 12,000 birds. The unit hosts semi-automated systems for ventilation, temperature control, lighting, feeding, water, egg collection and welfare monitoring. The site currently operates by 2 employees. Their collective responsibilities include poultry husbandry, egg collection, packing and maintenance, and administrative duties. The application does not include shift patterns, however, it is suggested that the essential 24-hour coverage is provided, particularly relating to the critical monitoring and emergency response requirements. The agent has emphasised that the resident farm workers are vital to maintaining the birds' welfare, responding to emergencies and ensuring the operational efficiency and biosecurity. It's considered that appropriate mitigation can be put in place to overcome the concerns that are set out in the application, particularly noting the technological advancements with alarm software. Modern egg-laying facilities utilise advanced automation and computer-integrated monitoring systems equipped with predictable failure alerts. There are alarm systems installed in Unit 2. Since these systems provide sufficient early warning for employed personnel to respond, particularly noting the close proximity of the dwellings, there is not considered to be an established functional need for an additional worker to reside on the site. Mr. Brown currently occupies Park Inn Bungalow, and is within close proximity, approximately 750 metres. The farm is already served by an existing agriculturally dwelling. The approval of the scheme would effectively result in 2 agriculturally two agricultural worker dwellings served by the site, and the existing dwelling was the existing dwelling was approved on the needs of the former business with twice the number of hens. Just now taking you to a couple of site photos. This is the view of the site. This is the view of the access from Potash Lane. Looking down the site, there is a public right of way that runs down here. This is the site looking to the west, and this is the access track and proposed parking arrangement. This is the view looking down the access drive that runs to Unit 2 here, and with the biosecurity measures in place, and then this is the access to the site. And this is moving onto the site with the caravan in place. This is a view from the site looking towards Unit 2 and the existing arrangement. This is the view looking to the east and showing the existing hedgerow. The public right-of-way runs to the north of this hedgerow. This is to show the wider context of the site. It's a part of a large agricultural field. And again, showing the existing decking in place. It's just turning to look back to the access of the site. This looking back towards the west, and the access is along here, and just showing how the caravan sits within the site. The proposal is for a single dwelling outside of development limits in the open countryside. Through the assessment, it has been determined that the proposed dwelling does not meet the criteria 1A of DM11 for a temporary dwelling when proposed for a new farming enterprise, and concludes that there is insufficient need for operations and fails to meet the policy exemption. Officers are not satisfied that the essential need for a further on-site presence has been proven, and the high bar set in the development plan and national policy to justify the isolated new home in the countryside is reached. Whilst it's noted that the council is currently unable to demonstrate its 5-year housing land supply, and the requirements of NPPF paragraph 11D require that the policies most important for the determination of the application are considered out of date, and the tilted balance is engaged. In this instance, the proposals would still not be considered acceptable if this were applied. The demonstrable harm of the dwelling in the countryside would not outweigh the limited benefits. And on this basis, the recommendation is for refusal. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Lindsay. And any moment you can go and rest your throat.
Sorry.
I just felt so, yeah. Members, questions of Lindsay? Anybody? Lisa?
Can I just confirm, Mrs Howlett, who be moving into current bungalow, which has the agricultural workers' tie on it, as director and owner of the company, is she classed as one of the agricultural workers to qualify to be in that bungalow?
Yeah, that's the position put forward. There's currently two employees that have been accounted for in the statement of need, and it's Michelle Howlett and David Brown are those that are accounted for within the shift pattern associated with this operation.
Yes. And she still
works, correct, yes. So one in the bungalow and one in the proposed retained caravan.
Any more questions? No? So we're going to go into public speaking. We've got Stuart. Hello, Stuart. So you're going to have 5 minutes. We'll warn you with 1 minute to go. And when you turn the microphone on, if you could please give your name for the record. Thank you. Ready when you go.
Yes, thank you, Chair. My name is Stuart Wells, the planning agent for Michelle Howlett, the client. My client's business, Hethel Hens, has recently restarted egg production and has future plans for growth. It is a valued local supplier of eggs across Norfolk, operating in a sector that faces real and ongoing risks, including that of avian flu. Planning policy, including that contained in the MPPF and policy DM211 of the local plan, exists to support rural businesses where there is a functional need for workers to live on site. In this case, that need has been clearly evidenced. This is a labour-intensive enterprise requiring 2 full-time workers, with both needing to be present 24/7. Emergencies in poultry units are not theoretical, they are time critical, and a delay of even a few minutes can result in the loss of birds and serious financial consequences. The officer's assessment does not properly grapple with that risk and understates the operational realities of modern poultry farming. The existing dwelling, known as Park End Bungalow, is, as the crow flies, 750 metres from the poultry barn. It is a 1 kilometre drive. It is neither within sight nor sound. Currently, the worker responding from there, David Brown, must drive across the farm and pass through biosecurity controls before entering the poultry holding and then the barn. The officer downplays this distance and delay, but the reality is that the proximity is fundamental to safeguarding the welfare of birds and the business itself. The suggestion that highly advanced alarm and monitoring systems would overcome the functional need is flawed. An alarm does not remove the 750 metre distance. It does not remove the need to travel across the farm or to comply with biosecurity procedures. Technology cannot substitute for immediate physical presence. The officer's reliance on automation is therefore misplaced. The officer also dismisses the relevance of the Daisy Bank Farm appeal decision, which has been put forward to the application, on the basis that it is not comparable. That conclusion is not borne out by the reasoning of the inspector, as in the case of Daisy Bank Farm, which concerned a second agricultural dwelling for a poultry enterprise. That inspector accepted that even with a high degree of automation, unforeseen crises require immediate human intervention. The inspector found that nothing short of a dwelling within sight and sound of the poultry building would guarantee the welfare of the stock, and concluded that the existing dwelling on that site did not meet the functional need. Therefore, the officer's assessment here is inconsistent with that reasoning. Furthermore, the council has twice previously granted temporary permission for a second rural workers dwelling at Potash Farm, and the officer dismisses this by asserting that policy and site circumstances have changed. Yet the policy test for functional need has not changed, and if anything, the site circumstances now strengthen the case, given the poultry enterprise operates within its own biosecure holding, and the existing bungalow, Park End Bungalow, no longer sits within it. It is 750 metres away. For these reasons, the previous approvals must be given significant weight. And most concerning is the officer's dismissal of avian flu as a material planning consideration. Biosecurity lies at the heart of modern poultry farming. A worker residing within the biosecure area enables immediate response and reduces unnecessary movements in and out of the unit, thereby reducing the risk of disease. To suggest that this is not a material consideration goes to the heart of the flaws in the assessment. Importantly, only temporary permission is being sought. The officer fails to meaningfully assess the implications of the temporary nature, despite the council being able to retain full control in monitoring the need and impacts of the proposed dwelling. I stress that Michelle Howlett's family and her kids do not currently have their own home. The proposal allows them to move into Park End Bungalow, with the existing worker David Brown being accommodated in the new caravan. In conclusion, the functional need has been robustly demonstrated, having regard to the site circumstances, operational risk, previous permissions, biosecurity and appeal precedent. Should members decide to support this application, any recommendation to approve can be subject to the completion of a dry rams unilateral undertaking and nutrient neutrality mitigation secured. This proposal supports a valued rural enterprise, bringing many benefits to the rural economy of South Norfolk and wholly accords with the development plan. And finally, I would stress that in light of the council's housing land supply position, the presumption in favour of sustainable development applies and the tilted balance engaged. And having had regard to this, officers would find that there would be no adverse impacts that significantly and demonstrably outweigh the benefits of this proposal. And finally, members, just in response to the planning officer's presentation earlier, I just want to clarify that the memorial exhibition has not ceased use. Therefore, pulling this together, respectfully, I ask members to support this application. Thank you.
Yeah, you say that 750 metres is too far to get to Chingsgood, and I've just looked at one line 6, 9 to 12 minutes to walk 750 yards. So, I don't know about chickens. Can you just give me some examples of what is so urgent that you have to get there within 10 minutes?
So, as I said, there's monitoring and alarm systems in the barn. So they'll pick up, for example, a malfunction in any kind of automated equipment. That can have serious consequences on egg production. So that can result in egg loss. There's also the need to respond to emergency incidents. So obviously, if, for example, if birds are startled by something, that can result in them kind of huddling together, which can cause suffocation and the loss of birds. There's a need to obviously respond immediately where there's maybe an intruder or a health and safety issue that requires an immediate response. That's particularly important given you've got a biosecure area. So obviously any potential disease risk can have significant consequences to the business if it involves the loss of birds. So there are a small example of reasons. Yeah, well, we put the application forward for a 5-year temporary permission. That's what's been applied for. 5 years? 5 years, yes. Since January 2025. Yeah. Yeah. Yes, so there are plans to expand the egg production, so that would include increasing the number of birds. There's currently 12,000 hens in the barn. If you reconfigure the internal arrangement of the barn, you could increase that to 16,000 hens. Obviously, bearing in mind risk with regards to avian flu, hopefully the future plans would involve free-range outdoor hens as well. So that would include on the land around the barn. I would say it's medium. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So, no more questions? Thank
you, Chair. My one might be just possibly a little bit silly, but where do your eggs actually go? Do they stay in kind of the area, or are they going outside the area?
No, they stay in the area. They are supplied to local farm shops and local distributors who send it. I think that includes, I think the co-op is supplied locally. So it is local shops and suppliers. Yeah.
Might be one for you, but it may not be. I can do the officer after. Does the owner have a poultry emergency plan that's functional and in date at the moment?
An emergency plan?
What, a poultry emergency plan?
I don't know the answer to that.
Okay, thanks, officer. Thank you.
Sorry, I would imagine they do, but I don't count me on it. Okay.
Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
My name is Jim Webber. I'm one of 3 ward councillors for the area. Together with councillors McClenning and Ian Spratt behind me, we are asking you to approve this application subject to any conditions required for things like nutrient neutrality. As Stuart's already set out, there is a clear and compelling need for this development. The family needs it. 4 people currently lodge in their mother's private home, The family are getting bigger. It's not an agricultural dwelling. They need to move. The business needs it. The key worker requires a permanent base on site. And crucially, I think, planning appeals across the country regularly accept this need for poultry enterprises. Paragraph 84 of the NPPF recognises that rural workers, particularly those taking on day-to-day responsibility for a farm, may need to live permanently at or near their workplace. That's exactly the situation here. And if not in the bungalow and a new caravan, where exactly? This farm is on a former airfield. There simply isn't appropriate nearby housing. And actually, your officer acknowledges this in her report. If not approved, the key worker is likely to be homeless. My research suggests that he would need to commute from Wymondham, a 10-mile round trip, probably twice a day, 6 days most weeks. This isn't practical or sensible. A mobile home a few yards from the hen house must unquestionably be the more sustainable option. And a worker living within immediate sight and sound of the hens is essential. There's a nearby footpath, and we see trespass and biosecurity breaches, unfortunately, threatening not just this business, but other flocks in East Anglia because of avian flu and other airborne diseases. Having a worker living within sight and sound of the flock can reduce this risk. And I've been struck by the number of appeals I've found that show that the inspector will give approval for temporary dwellings, even when modern technology is installed, because they're within sight and sound of the hens. In the Daisy Bank Farm appeal, there was already existing accommodation actually nearer than Park End Bungalow, but the inspector accepted that wasn't close enough. In another appeal, the inspector decided that a 5-minute drive to the hens was too long. And in the Heel Farms appeal, the inspector noted the consistent requirement for accommodation near the sheds in many other appeal decisions. He found in favour of the appeal and awarded costs because the council hadn't provided reasons for departing from established appeal precedent. Yeah, I think what we've heard today doesn't really engage with those precedents whatsoever. And for context, I know a poultry farm near me. The location of the house and the hens is less than 25 metres away. Very close indeed. I'm pleased to see that we now accept there isn't a 5-year land supply and the tilted balance must be considered. We've heard that the harm done from this proposal outweighs any benefit. But this caravan is temporary, discreet, and well screened and outweighed by the benefits. I think we should be supporting a local business. Hethel Hens is a local employer.
1 minute to go.
You can buy its hens, its eggs in the co-op and in places like the food hall at the showground. The country is not self-sufficient in eggs. Supporting local producers like this improves our economy nationally and locally, and it improves our food resilience. The NPPF expects planning authorities to respond to local circumstances and support rural worker accommodation where an essential need exists. Here that need seems undeniable. We have a principle of supporting sustainable development. This application delivers clear social, environmental and economic benefits with absolutely minimal harm and a strong planning justification supported by appeal precedent. I ask you to approve the application. If you'd like to ask questions, I'm happy to try and answer them. And I also note that Michelle Howell is with us today.
Thank you, Jim. Are there any questions of Jim at all? No? Thank you, Jim. If you'd like to turn the microphone off. So we're going out of public speaking and into members' thoughts and comments. I think one of the quite interesting things is fines are going to go. The interesting things, first one is the extra accommodation in a rural area. The other one is that it is temporary. there would be time to prove whether it's needed or not, and whether we need two people, agricultural people, for one small or medium-sized shed. So members, thoughts, please. Joe.
Yeah, it's a question for Lindsay. It was stated there that it was in a legal precedence that 5 minutes is too far to drive to get to your chickens. Well, okay, this is 750 metres walk. How near is near? Is there any guidance of how near you have to be near your chickens?
If I can just clarify, yes, the appeal decisions that Councillor Webber is, it's not a thorough assessment of the appeal decisions. It's quite clear there is no fixed distance test in metres or miles. That's not, there's no established distance. But I'd say in terms of those appeal decisions, proximity is judged by response time, animal welfare needs, site-specific operational. So I think you have to look at, you have regard to those appeal decisions, but they don't establish that just because the time period or whatever for that one was appropriate for this case. So you have got a different context to consider, but you do need to have regard to those appeal decisions to make sure you are being appropriate in terms of decision making. But there's no set established fixed time periods. You need to make a judgment in terms of whether or not the two properties combined are necessary for the functional need in terms of that response time. And or whether or not that could be fulfilled with just the existing tied property.
I think it's a safety measure, isn't it, provided that you...
And has it been operating currently with just a house?
Sorry, the existing...
Yeah, has it been operating currently with just a house?
They've purchased the original property or the bungalow with the purchase of the farm in 1997. And then they had the additional accommodation of Heathwell Hall Cottage in 1999. So those... Oh, sorry, yeah. So this is seeking to re-establish the enterprise as of January 2025.
So it's been operating as a chicken farm.
Yeah.
With living in the building.
Yes, yeah. Just if I may, just add to the appeal point that Tracy mentioned. I've reviewed the site circumstances and how there's some elements that are comparable. The Daisy Farm one that they're related to in particular was for a wholly different scale development. The existing hen operations was about 64,000 in terms of numbers, and their living circumstances were I think the nearest operator of the hen section of the farm was based 3.5 kilometres away. So the circumstances are slightly different.
Can I just check that now?
Yes.
Agricultural use. Who's living? Is the agricultural worker living in the bungalow at the moment?
Yeah, so... Sorry, just referring back to my earlier slide, we've got Heathwell Hall Cottage here, which is owned and lived in by Anne Howlett and Michael and Michelle Howlett and their family, informally. And then just here is Park End Bungalow, which is the agriculturally tied property, which was purchased with the farm originally.
Sorry, if I could just clarify. My understanding, and I'm going to have to need to clarify, is that the occupation of Park End Bungalow currently is by one of the intended agricultural workers. The caravan would also be occupied by one of the agricultural workers. So my understanding is the contention is that there's two separate agricultural workers necessary, one family, one employed. And then I think the Heathwell Hall Cottage is a bit of a non-issue because that's the former farmer and unrelated to the operation of this farming enterprise. So you've got two properties, one that's now being proposed and being sought for consent, one that's already got consent or in presence with an agricultural tie. So you've essentially got what we're saying is that you need two separate properties and two separate workers to fulfil the functional need of this site.
What I was trying to get at is one of those workers a family member?
Sorry, Chair, can I just thank like you in the paper? I think it actually says that the owner and director of the farm is the lady who wants to move, probably with Richard, into the bungalow, and then the current agricultural worker who is living in the bungalow will be moved into the caravan.
Exactly that. Yeah.
Is that correct?
Yeah. Yeah, so moving into the bungalow would be Michael and Michelle Howlett. Michelle is the director of the poultry business. The current resident of Park End Bungalow would be moving into the caravan, the static caravan. He's a current employee. He was re-employed in January 2025 after previously working for them.
Can I ask how long the mobile unit's been on site?
The caravan has been installed throughout the application process. As of this aerial image in August 2025, it wasn't there, but what date it was installed, I can't confirm.
And as the chairman said, how long is temporary?
Thank you, Chairman. Obviously, mine's more of a comment because I'm looking at this on operational kind of aspect, and obviously this facility has to be monitored 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Now, obviously, if there's one worker living in the bungalow, if I'm correct, and the other worker who would obviously be doing some kind of shift pattern, because one worker can't stay up 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, they would be living somewhere else. So obviously, as somebody said, possibly Wyndham. I am using my knowledge of farming, which is very small, doing that. If something is near, then obviously the response is a lot quicker, and you have to have 2 people on shift or 2 people working. And I would be actually happy to support the applicant in this matter, knowing that you've got to have 2 people on site. And as they've already been living in the caravan or have the caravan on site for a few months, there must be a need by the applicant to have this there, and if it's only temporary for 5 years, they can then come back to us and show that they have fulfilled the criteria or any conditions we've put on, and show that that is then needed. And if it is then proved to be not needed, then obviously it goes back to how it was.
Okay.
Yeah, my only thing was the other thing, you probably got to see it coming, but poultry emergency plan, do they have one? Have we seen one? Because looking at it's not a DEFRA regulation, just to be clear, but if an organisation's got one, it would identify potential hazards, develop a response protocols, and implement measures to minimise disruption. If a poultry emergency plan was there and it identified this, then it's just cause for it. But do they have one, or have you seen one?
No, an emergency plan hasn't been part of the application. They submitted a statement of functional need, but whether that forms the information, it forms part of it, but not specifically.
It's not DEFRA requirement, it's a guideline, but it would identify, that plan would identify a justifiable need for this, then it would kind of give them more of a case to sort of justify it. But without it, yeah.
Lisa?
Yeah, I'm still trying to get in my head so that we have an agricultural worker who is in the bungalow, who will move into the caravan, and it will be Mrs. Howlett that will move into the bungalow. And I know she's the director and owner of the business, but as Gary said, does she also go out on call for things like for the birds at night time and things like that?
Yeah, so the statement of functional needs sets out the duties of each, and we've not been provided with shift patterns in terms of how much time that covers throughout the course of a day for each of them. but there's a list of duties within that, and Michelle's role to cover some. Included within her list of duties is some of the husbandry.
Sorry, can I just request, maybe we could ask Mrs. Howard that question if she goes out to actually support the egg farm and that? I know, but obviously I'd just like to kind of work out what Mrs. Howard actually does.
Yeah, I can understand, as Gary said, it's a business, what have you, but the caravan, in my opinion, when you look at the pictures in that field, it looks like a sore thumb really stuck out in the middle of the countryside. We would never let a structure to be built out in the open countryside. We have policies for this. I do appreciate that we want to economically support businesses and things like this, but I don't feel comfortable approving that out in an open field as it is. Chair.
Chair, do you mind just putting your mic on, sorry?
We need to get a system. So the recommendation is for refusal. So all of those who agree with the recommendation, please raise your hand.
That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, Chair, for refusal.
Against?
And 2 against, Chair, so that's carried for refusal.
Right, 5, 2. Members, I'm minded the time's getting on. We'll give it a 10-minute break just before we do the last one.